helping people cope with and overcome life's challenges. This is Life Transformations with Michael Hart, Canadian certified counselor and award-winning psychotherapist.
I want to thank you for joining us on this episode of the Life Transformation Show. Today's show is titled 6 Warning Signs of Chronic Stress. I'm your host, Michael Hart of ElimCounselling Services. Did you know that your body warns you when you're entering the danger zone of chronic stress? Just as a car engine turns on a light when the oil level is in desperate need of changing, your body sends signals to you that let you know when you're entering this chronic zone, this danger zone of stress. These signs are very important because if it is not heeded, if these signs are not heeded, they will lead to nervous breakdown and other mental illness or even death. Our God made our bodies in such a wonderful way that there are these built-in mechanisms that are there to warn us of danger. No wonder the psalmist in Psalm 139:14 cried out, "Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. It is amazing to think about. Your workmanship is marvelous, and how well I know it." Just as the psalmist says how well he knows it, it is good for us to know and understand our bodies and pay attention to the signs that our bodies are sending us. In one article that was published in the Biological Psychiatric Journal, published online November 2011, it was stated that stress leads to increased aging. In other words, if you do not pay attention to stress and your body is in a chronic state of stress, you're actually aging faster. There is so much that we spend on beauty creams and moisturizers and plastic and even plastic surgery, but it would make a big difference if we would pay attention to these stress signals because it would slow down the process of aging. In another journal, the Journal of Aging Research published online as well, it was found that there is a 50% higher mortality rate for people who live in a stressful state, who stay in a stressful state and do not pay attention to the signs and do something about it. In another journal, Journal of Affective Disorders, published in June 2011, researchers at Brown University found that stressful life events cause panic symptoms to increase gradually over time rather than to trigger an immediate panic attack. So a lot of times we feel that if we are not having a panic attack or if we are not showing any major signs, then we are doing okay. But what this journal is saying that instead of one big event, these symptoms build up over time. So it's very important to pay attention to these six signs that I am going to be talking about today. If you are new to this broadcast, Elim is a professional counseling organization that provides professional psychotherapy from a Christian perspective. You can find out more about us by going to our website at ElimCounselingMinistry.com. You can also call us at 1-877-544-3546. So let's get right into these 6 signs that we are talking about today, these 6 warning signs. And we have created this acronym CHI-E-F, C.H.I.E.F.S, to talk about these 6 signs. These are the chief symptoms. And there's an acronym, very fitting acronym indeed, called CHI-E-F, C.H.I.E.F.S, that helps us to remember these 6 signs. So get your pen and paper as we go through these 6 signs today. If you notice any one of these signs, it is important that you pay pay attention to it and do the tips that we are going to be talking about at the end of this show. So, the C in Chiefs is for concentration. If you are beginning to experiencing concentration difficulties, then it might be that you have entered the state of chronic stress. Concentration difficulties result in signs such as you're not able to think clearly, or you have an inability to make decisions that you would make easily before are now suddenly hard to make, or you can't seem to focus on any task. You sit down to do something and you become distracted, whereas before you were someone that could sit and concentrate for hours. Or maybe it would be that you have an inability to perform complicated tasks, or you're making careless mistakes. If you're seeing these signs in your work, then you are showing the first symptom, the C for concentration. You're experiencing concentration difficulties. And what this means is that the stress that you're under is beginning to affect the way that your brain function. So if you are seeing any of these things that I have talked about so far, it is important for you to pay attention. The next letter, H in Chiefs, is for headaches, and particularly we are talking about tension headaches. So it's important to distinguish between tension headaches and migraine. By tension headaches, we're talking about this feeling that has been described as if a tight band is around your head. There is this feeling of tightness around your head. So the signs of tension headache is a dull, aching pain, sensation of tightness and pressure across your forehead. And it also can reflect in tenderness on your scalp, neck, or shoulder muscles as well. So these are signs that you're having a tension headache. And this is different than migraine, because with migraine there is usually vomiting or nauseous feeling or visual disturbance. This does not happen with tension headache. So if you are seeing this symptom of, or any of these symptoms that we have talked about, or any of these description, I should say, of tension headache, then it is important to you to pay attention, because this is a warning sign that your body is sending you that you have entered the stage of chronic stress. The I in Chiefs is for irritability. So irritability can take the form of becoming upset over simple things, or even having crying spells over things that would not normally bother you. So if you are seeing this where you're normally a person that is not very reactive and you are usually not emotional, but all of a sudden you find yourself losing your temper, screaming at your spouse, slamming the door, or any of these kind of signs, it is possible that you are going through this phase of chronic stress. And as we go through this pandemic, many people are becoming more and more stressed. And so if you notice that in your relationship, now that you're on the lockdown or you're quarantined with your partner, and you're beginning to notice that this person that is normally quite jovial, quite happy, and very easy to get along with is now screaming at you over simple things, such as you ask a simple question that they can't answer, or they are upset because they didn't get their supper on time, or for something simple like there is a sock on the floor or something like that. And this is not the person's normal way of behaving. It is important for you to realize that this irritability can be one of the symptoms, one of the signs that you have entered into the stage of chronic stress. And so let me just describe a little bit about what may be happening here. When someone is in a state where they feel that life is out of control, or there is some big thing that is happening that they have no control over, and they're beginning to become stressed, the little things that are out of place can be a trigger for those bigger things that are causing the stress in the first place. So the spilled cup of coffee that makes someone jump up and start swearing where they wouldn't normally do that, is that spilled cup of coffee signifies or is triggering this feeling of my life is out of control. Everything is going wrong. So far we have covered 3 of the 6 letters in the acronym. The C, we said, is for concentration. The H, we said, is for headaches, and specifically tension headaches. And the I, we said, is for irritability. The E in the acronym CHI.E.F.S is for eating. And we're specifically talking about stress eating. You've heard the term comfort foods. Yes, there is actually a scientific explanation for what is going on when someone starts binge eating on what we call comfort food. When a person undergoes a stressful event, for a time there is a loss of appetite as the adrenal gland pumps out adrenaline, and adrenaline causes us to lose our appetite. When your adrenaline is pumping and you are tense and you have this fight or flight mechanism kicking in, you don't feel as if you want to eat anything, and so appetite shuts down for a while. But if stress is prolonged, in other words, it's not just that you're attacked by someone or you're in a dangerous situation and it's just for a short while. But if the stress is long-term, stress that goes on over many days, many weeks, many months, the adrenal gland starts pumping out another hormone that is called cortisol, the stress hormone. And cortisol creates a different response to food. Cortisol makes you start craving food. In other words, your body is sending signal that you need to eat more and more to survive. This crisis is lasting for too long. And as a result of this, people start overeating. As a matter of fact, one research that was done in the United States found that 1 in 4 Americans rate their level of stress at level 8 or more on a point of 10. So it's not surprising that there is a weight problem in that society where people are so stressed that they're beginning to eat more and more. So if you are finding yourself craving foods that you did not crave before, find yourself eating more than you did before, it's important to pay attention to that. Or maybe you have been eating like this for a while. Maybe you have had stress that has been happening in your life for many years, and you have gotten into this routine of comfort eating to feel better, then this is a very dangerous practice for you to have, because this is a short-term solution to the problem, but it will create a lot of long-term problems. So as a result, in certain segments of the American society where stress is very high, people are developing a lot of health problems such as obesity and diabetes. And so the problems from overeating becomes bigger than the temporary solution that it gives in the moment. And we actually have a scriptural example of someone who turned to food as a way of coping. And this is in 1 Samuel chapter 25:36. It's a story of Nabal, where Nabal was this man who got into a fight one day with David and his his army. And Nabal was no match for David. And so I won't go into the story in detail, but in a nutshell, he insulted David and his mighty warriors, and he was just a farmer. And I think there was something, even though Nabal by character means someone who is brutish, I think there is something that must have kicked in where he realized, I am in big trouble. I just put myself in danger. And so when Abigail heard what Nabal had done, Abigail, his wife, set out on a mission to get David not to attack her husband and their family. And so Abigail was able to bring peace. But what is interesting in the story is that when Abigail came back, she found Nabal having a banquet, and it's 1 Samuel 25:36 said that he was having a banquet fit for a king. So you can just get the picture from that description that he was eating a lot of food, and also tells us that he was drunk as well. So it seemed as if Nabal turned to food as a way of coping with the stress that he had put himself under, and this eventually led to his demise and his death, because we are told that he had a heart attack the following day. And so it's important that if you find yourself overeating, that you realize that this is something that's your body is sending a sign that you're entering into chronic stress, and you need to get help to deal with that. The F is for forgetfulness. So far we have covered 4 of the acronym. We have 2 more to go in the acronym C.H.I.E.F.S that talks about this, that represent these 6 signs, and we have covered C.H.I.E.F.S. We are now at the F. The F is for forgetfulness. If you realize that you're becoming forgetful, it could be because, again, your body is producing stress hormone, and stress hormone can create changes in regions of the brain. As a matter of fact, they say that these stress hormones can actually cause physical changes in parts of the brain over time. But in the short term, it affects the way that the brain receives signals and messages, and so memory is affected. And so people will start forgetting things that they wouldn't normally forget. And you might be wondering, is my partner having early Alzheimer? But it might not be early Alzheimer. It might just be that they're under so much stress that they cannot recall, especially short-term things, and so they're forgetting things that they wouldn't normally forget. We have an interesting passage in Mark 6 verse 52 with the disciples when they were on the sea, and they were in a situation where there was a storm that occurred, and they were fearful for their lives, and Jesus came walking on the water and brought calm, and he entered the boat with them. And then we had these interesting word where it said they considered not the miracle of the loaves and the fish, because their heart was hardened. And so we may read that to mean that they had some kind of wickedness in their heart, and so they did not consider the miracle that Jesus did shortly before that. But is it possible that these disciples, being in this place of terror where their focus was on saving their lives, that they had no memory, no recollection of the great miracle that Jesus did before? They had no space in their brain to consider that Jesus did this mighty miracle, and so this person that was coming towards them could be Jesus. As a matter of fact, the only way they could perceive their situation was that this must be a ghost. This could not be our Savior. So they had no space in their mind to factor in that this great person that they were serving, Jesus, had this potential to rescue them, because he had just did that miracle shortly before of feeding 5,000 people with just a small meal. And so the King James Version tells us they considered not the miracle of the loaves and the fishes, which mean that it which could mean that it could not enter their minds. They could not perceive of it or remember it because they were in such a state of fear. And so it's also true that in stressful situations, people start forgetting things. They start forgetting important dates, birthdays, and maybe you have had someone who recently forget your birthday who should remember it. Don't be mad at that person, because that person might be under tremendous stress as a result of all that is going on in the world today. So forgetfulness is one of the signs of chronic stress. The sixth symptom or sign of chronic stress has to do with sleep. The S is for sleep. And changes in sleep pattern is very important for us to pay attention to. If you are suffering from insomnia, it could be that you are so stressed that you can't sleep through the night. The problems of what's going on in the world or in your life, the bills that are piling up are now causing you to stay awake. This could be a sign that you're entering into chronic stress. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you have hypersomnia. And hypersomnia is when a person is sleeping for long periods. So they're actually doing the opposite. They're sleeping too much. And so if you're having hypersomnia where you are sleeping a lot and you wake up, and especially you're still tired after these long periods of sleeping, that's a sign that your body is entering into chronic stress. So pay attention to that, especially being tired after long sleep. It's understandable that if you have insomnia, you will be tired. So fatigue is a sign of, it comes on a part of chronic stress as well, because people are not sleeping well. But in hypersomnia can also have this symptom of fatigue associated with it as well, where people are tired even after lengthy periods of rest. And so if you're suffering from that, it is important for you to pay attention to that. So there you have it, the 6 signs of chronic stress. If you have missed the first part of this show, you can find it by going to our YouTube channel, by going to our website, ElimCounselingMinistry.com. So what do you do if you notice that you're having these signs, if you have any of these 6 signs that we have talked about here today? Well, there's some interesting things that I would suggest. The first thing I would suggest is that you listen to the 2 shows that we did recently. There was one show that we did that was entitled How to Stay Mentally Healthy During the Pandemic, and the second show was How to Cope with Distress. This show went into detail of giving you tips on how to cope with stress. But in a nutshell, things like getting regular exercise can be very helpful in helping you to cope with stress. Talk with someone about your problems, about what you're going through, and it doesn't necessarily has to be a counselor right away. You can start talking to friends and family members about what you feel. And I would say, even though you are keeping social distance or physical distance, you don't have to isolate yourself. You should still talk to people through social media, through Skype, through Zoom. Stay in contact, because coming out of isolation, staying connected with people will help you to cope with stress. It's also important, it can be important for you to get professional help as well. Cognitive behavior therapy can be very effective in helping you to deal with these chronic symptoms. So if you have any of these chronic symptoms, it might be time for you to call a counselor. It might be time for you to call us and to say, I need to deal with this problem. Don't wait until it's too late. We have a number of people that have reached out to us because of these 2 shows that I'm recommending that you listen to, and they're free of cost. You can find them by going to our website. On 3 days ago, we had a comment by Sophia, who commented on the video, one of those two videos. I don't remember which one it was, but she said, yes, we are perplexed but not crushed. In all this, I know we will come out victorious. It's just a matter of time, and this will be over. Thank you for this video. It's going to go a long way for many people. So thank you, Sophia, for that comment. And as Sophia is saying, the tips that she found in those videos are helpful, and she's convinced that it will help many people. Brooklyn 3 days ago also commented, I love the biblical illustration. It's very apt and show distress has been there since time immemorial. And so distress has been there since time immemorial. And so it's very important for you to take the time to listen to these two shows together. They're just an hour long, but there's valuable information that I didn't have the time to go into today. So if you have noticed any of these six signs, it's important to pay attention. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Life Transformation Show. If you enjoy these podcasts, I want to ask you to prayerfully consider making a donation to this ministry. Donations helps us to keep these broadcasts on the air and to provide counseling at a subsidized rate for those who need it but cannot afford it. During this time, we're especially passionate about helping low-income frontline workers who are stressed and in need of professional help but cannot afford it. Your donations will help us to pay our professional counselors and to give free counseling or subsidized counseling to these frontline workers. Remember that no donation is too small. You can donate through our website, ElimCounselingMinistry.com, or you can donate through our crowdfunding platform at patreon.com/ElimCounseling. All our podcasts can be found on our Patreon page as well. And Patreon is a podcast page that's funded by listeners of the podcast, and you can become a Patreon. You can support us from as little as $5 monthly. I want to say a big thanks to those of you who have become a supporter so far. And so we want to remind you too that there is over 200 other podcasts that we have done that is available free of cost online to help you with whatever struggle you are going through. So before I go today, I pray God's protection over your family, and also pray that He would bless you in all your relationships, and that He would keep you sound in mind and pure in heart.